"Can I stay one night? I am broken." Native woman begged. Mountain man whispered, "Stay forever." The mountains were quiet that evening, the kind of quiet that made a person hear their own breathing. Cold wind moved slowly through the tall pine trees, carrying the smell of snow that had not yet fallen. The sky was already turning dark even though it was not very late, and clouds gathered above the peaks like heavy blankets waiting to drop. The mountain man worked alone outside his cabin, splitting wood with steady movements. Each swing of the axe was slow and controlled, as if he had done this work so many times that his body no longer needed to think. He lived far from towns, far from roads, and even farther from people. The cabin stood near a narrow stream, hidden between trees and rocks, a place few travelers ever found. He preferred it that way. Years of solitude had shaped him into someone who spoke little and listened more. The mountains gave him peace because they asked nothing from him. They did not remind him of past mistakes or lost moments. They simply existed. As he stacked the last pieces of wood near the door, he paused. Something felt different. At first he thought it was only the wind shifting direction, but then he saw movement at the edge of the trees. A figure. He narrowed his eyes, watching carefully. People did not come here by accident. The trail leading up the mountain was difficult, and winter made it even worse. Whoever approached must have been walking for hours, maybe days. The figure moved slowly, almost unsteady. As she came closer, he realized it was a woman. Her steps were heavy, and she leaned forward as if fighting against exhaustion. Snow dust clung to her clothes, and her long hair moved with the wind. He stood still, unsure whether to step forward or remain where he was. When she reached the clearing near the cabin, she stopped several feet away. Her eyes met his, filled with both caution and hope. For a moment, neither spoke. The silence stretched between them like a fragile thread. "Can I stay one night?" she asked softly. Her voice was tired but steady. "I am broken. I just need one night." The words hung in the cold air. He had heard many stories in his life, and he knew that people sometimes carried trouble with them. Helping strangers could bring risk. He had learned that lesson long ago. Still, something about her did not feel dangerous. She stood with quiet dignity, despite obvious exhaustion. He noticed small details, the way her hands trembled slightly from cold, the careful way she watched her surroundings, the strength hidden behind her tired posture. She was not weak, only worn down. He hesitated. The mountains had taught him to be cautious. Trust was not given easily here. Yet leaving someone outside in winter could mean serious danger. Without speaking, he stepped aside and opened the cabin door. She did not move immediately. It was as if she needed to make sure he truly meant it. Finally, she walked forward slowly, crossing the threshold with careful steps. Warmth surrounded her as soon as she entered. The fire burned quietly inside the stone fireplace, filling the room with orange light. She stood near the doorway, unsure where to go, as if she did not want to disturb anything. "You can sit," he said quietly, pointing toward a wooden chair. She nodded and lowered herself slowly, releasing a long breath she seemed to have been holding for hours. He closed the door behind them, shutting out the cold wind. For a while, neither spoke. He poured hot water into a simple cup and handed it to her. She accepted it with both hands, holding it close as if absorbing its warmth. Her eyes moved around the cabin, the shelves filled with tools, the cooking stove, the neatly arranged blankets. Everything looked simple but cared for. She drank slowly. "Thank you," she said after a moment. He nodded. Outside, the wind grew stronger. Snow began to fall, first lightly, then heavier, covering the ground in a soft white layer. He prepared a small meal without asking questions: bread, dried meat, and warm soup. When he placed the bowl in front of her, she hesitated again, as if unsure she deserved it. Eventually she took a spoonful, then another, eating carefully but with quiet hunger. He sat across from her, watching without staring. "Long journey?" he asked finally. She nodded. "Yes." That was all she said. The silence returned, but it did not feel uncomfortable. It felt like two people waiting for the right moment to speak. After eating, she removed her worn coat. He noticed marks on the fabric from travel, dust, small tears, signs of long days on the road. She looked older than her years, not from age but from experience. The fire crackled softly. Outside, the storm began in earnest. Hours passed slowly. She helped wash the dishes without being asked, moving with quiet respect for his space. He watched her carefully, noting how she avoided sudden movements, how she kept her back toward the wall when possible. Habits of someone who had learned to protect herself. When the wind howled loudly against the cabin walls, she flinched slightly. He pretended not to notice. Night settled fully. He laid out extra blankets near the fire for her. She looked surprised.
"You can take the bed,"
he said simply. Her eyes widened. "No," she answered quickly. "I can stay here." He did not argue. She wrapped herself in the blankets, but sleep did not come easily. He could see it in the way she shifted, in the way her eyes remained open longer than expected. Finally, she spoke again. "I didn't mean to come this far," she said quietly.
"I just kept walking."
He listened without interrupting.
"I needed to leave," she added, after a long pause.
He nodded once, showing he understood without demanding explanation. Outside, the storm grew stronger, snow hitting the windows with steady force. The world beyond the cabin disappeared into darkness and wind. After some time, her breathing slowed, and she fell asleep. He remained awake, sitting near the fire, watching, thinking. It had been a long time since another person shared his space. The cabin felt different, less empty. The silence was no longer heavy. He wondered who she truly was, what had pushed her into the mountains, and whether she would leave as soon as morning came. When dawn finally arrived, soft light filtered through the window. Snow covered everything outside, turning the world quiet and new. He stepped outside briefly and realized the trail had disappeared under deep snow. Travel would be impossible today. Inside, she slowly woke, looking around as if remembering where she was. For a moment, confusion crossed her face, then relief.
"The storm,"
she said. "Yes," he replied. "You'll need to stay longer." She nodded slowly, accepting the situation. Neither knew that this unexpected delay would begin something neither had planned, a meeting between two people who believed they were only passing through each other's lives, unaware that the mountains sometimes brought strangers together for reasons deeper than chance. Morning came slowly, and the storm did not stop. Snow fell thick and heavy outside, covering the valley in deep white silence. The mountain man stepped outside briefly to check the trail, but it had disappeared completely. The path down the mountain was hidden under layers of snow. Anyone trying to travel now would risk getting lost or trapped. When he came back inside, the woman was already awake, sitting near the fire. She held a warm cup in her hands, staring quietly into the flames, as if thinking about something far away. She looked calmer than the night before, though tiredness still showed in her eyes.
"You were right," she said softly when he entered.
"I cannot leave today." He nodded. "Maybe not tomorrow either." She accepted the words without complaint. Instead of looking worried, she seemed almost relieved, as if having time to rest was something she had not allowed herself before. They began the day without many words. He prepared a simple breakfast, and she offered to help. At first he hesitated. He had lived alone for so long that sharing small tasks felt unfamiliar. But she moved carefully, respecting his space, watching how he did things before trying to assist. Soon they worked together quietly, passing bowls and tools back and forth without speaking much. The silence felt natural, not heavy. After eating, he handed her a pair of dry gloves and a thicker coat. "If you want fresh air," he said, "stay close to the cabin." She nodded gratefully. Outside, the world looked different from the night before. Snow rested on every branch and rock, turning the mountains into a place that felt almost peaceful despite the cold. She stood still for a long moment, breathing deeply, as if tasting freedom. He watched from the doorway. She walked slowly around the clearing, studying everything: the woodpile, the small stream frozen near the edges, the path leading into the trees. Her movements showed awareness, like someone used to watching for danger but trying to relax. When she returned inside, her cheeks were red from cold, but her eyes seemed brighter. "It is beautiful here," she said. He gave a small nod. Yes. The rest of the morning passed in simple tasks. They organized supplies, cleaned tools, and repaired a loose hinge on a cabinet door. She surprised him with her practical skills. She knew how to tie strong knots, how to sharpen a knife carefully, and how to move quietly through the cabin without making unnecessary noise. "You've done this before," he said finally. She paused. "I learned many things growing up," she answered, her tone calm but guarded. He sensed there was more behind her words, but did not press further. In the afternoon, as the fire burned steadily, she began to speak more. Not full stories, just small pieces. She told him she had come from a place where she felt invisible, where people expected her to follow a path she did not choose. She spoke of responsibilities that became heavy and decisions made by others that shaped her life without asking what she wanted. He listened without interrupting. She did not complain or speak with anger. Instead, her voice carried quiet sadness mixed with strength. "I walked away," she said simply. "I thought maybe if I kept walking long enough I would find something new." "And did you?" he asked. She looked around the cabin, then toward the window where snow continued to fall. "I don't know yet." Later, she asked about him. He remained silent for a long time before answering. "I used to live closer to people," he said slowly. "But things changed." He stopped there. She did not ask more, sensing his limits. That small act of respect made him feel unexpectedly comfortable. Many people demanded answers. She accepted silence. As evening approached, they gathered more wood together. The work warmed them, and for the first time since she arrived, a small laugh escaped her when he slipped slightly on the snow. He looked at her in surprise, and she quickly covered her mouth, embarrassed. "It has been a long time since I laughed," she admitted. He found himself smiling faintly. That night they ate together again, this time speaking more freely. She told small stories about her travels, kind strangers who shared food, long stretches of road walked alone, moments of doubt when she wondered if she should turn back. She avoided certain details, but he respected her boundaries. Outside, the storm continued, but inside the cabin felt warmer, not just from the fire, but from shared presence. Later, as the fire burned low, she sat quietly and watched the flames. "Do you ever feel tired of being alone?" she asked gently. He stared at the fire for a long moment before answering. "Sometimes," he said honestly, "but it is easier than losing people." She nodded slowly, understanding more than he expected. "I used to think being strong meant never needing anyone," she said. "Now I think strength might be something else." He looked at her curious. "What?" She smiled softly. "Maybe staying when it is easier to leave." The words stayed with him long after she fell asleep that night. The next morning the storm finally began to slow. Sunlight touched the mountains, reflecting off snow like bright silver. But the trail remained buried, and travel was still dangerous. Days passed this way. They developed a rhythm together, waking early, sharing meals, working side by side. He began to notice small changes in himself. The cabin felt less like a hiding place and more like a home again. She also changed. The deep exhaustion faded slowly, replaced by calm strength. She moved with more confidence, no longer watching every corner as if expecting danger. One afternoon, while repairing a fence near the cabin, she told him about her childhood, how she learned to respect nature, how elders taught patience and resilience. Her connection to her heritage showed in the way she spoke about land and spirit, not with dramatic words, but with quiet reverence. He listened carefully, realizing she carried wisdom beyond her years. That evening they shared tea near the fire. Snow melted slowly outside, dripping from branches. I will need to leave when the trail opens, she said suddenly. The words created unexpected heaviness in the room. He nodded, though something inside him resisted the idea. Yes, he said. Neither spoke after that for a long time. The thought of returning to solitude felt different now. The cabin had changed, filled with laughter and conversation he had not known he missed. But he did not want to hold her back from her journey. She watched him carefully, sensing his thoughts. I only asked for one night, she said softly. You gave me more than I expected. He looked at her, unsure what to say. Outside, the clouds began to break, revealing stars for the first time since she arrived. The mountain stood silent, witnessing two people slowly rebuilding trust, both aware that the storm had done more than block the trail. It had brought two broken lives into a shared space where healing quietly began. The snow began to melt slowly as days passed, turning the silent white world into moving water and soft earth. Small drops fell from tree branches during the day, and the frozen stream near the cabin started to flow again. With the changing weather came a quiet understanding between them. Soon the path down the mountain would open again. Neither spoke much about it. That morning the mountain man woke earlier than usual. He stepped outside and looked toward the valley. The sky was clear for the first time in many days, and the air felt lighter. He could see parts of the trail appearing again through the snow. Another day or two, maybe less, and traveling would become possible. Instead of feeling relief, he felt something else he did not expect: hesitation. Inside the cabin she prepared tea. Her movements were calm and steady now, very different from the tired woman who had arrived weeks ago. Strength had returned to her eyes, and her posture carried quiet confidence. You were outside long, she said gently when he entered. The trail is opening, he replied. She nodded slowly, as if she had been waiting to hear those words. Neither spoke after that. The fire crackled softly between them. Later they worked together repairing the roof where heavy snow had caused damage. She climbed carefully, following his instructions without fear. At one moment she slipped slightly, but he reached out quickly, steadying her. Their eyes met for a brief second, and something unspoken passed between them. Trust. Maybe something deeper. When they finished, they sat on the steps of the cabin, breathing in the cool mountain air. Do you ever regret leaving people behind? She asked quietly. He thought for a long moment before answering. Sometimes, he said, but regret does not change what already happened. She nodded, understanding more than he explained.
I left without saying goodbye, she admitted.
I thought if I stopped to explain, I would lose the courage to go. He did not judge her. Instead, he simply listened. In the afternoon, unexpected movement near the tree line caught his attention. He stiffened immediately, watching carefully. Two men approached slowly, their figures growing clearer as they moved closer to the cabin. Visitors were rare. He stood up, his body alert but calm. She noticed his change in posture and followed his gaze. The moment she saw the men, her expression changed. The calm confidence faded, replaced by tension. You know them? He asked quietly. She hesitated, then nodded slightly. They come from the place I left. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The men reached the clearing and greeted the mountain man politely, asking if he had seen a woman traveling alone through the mountains. Their voices sounded friendly enough, but something in their tone felt heavy with purpose. He answered calmly that many travelers passed through the mountains and that he kept mostly to himself. He did not invite them inside. The woman remained near the cabin door, silent. One of the men looked toward her briefly, but did not step closer. After a short conversation, they thanked him and continued down the trail, disappearing into the trees. Only when they were gone did she release the breath she had been holding. I thought they might find me, she said quietly. He waited. They are not bad people, she added quickly, but they want me to return. They believe they are helping, and you do not want to go back, he said. She shook her head. No. They stood together in silence, the mountains quiet around them. That evening, she finally told him more about her past. She spoke about expectations placed on her, decisions made by others about her future, and how she felt her voice had slowly disappeared among louder opinions. She had not been running from danger, but from a life where she felt trapped. "I needed to know who I was without everyone telling me," she said softly. He understood that feeling deeply. For the first time, he shared more about his own past. He spoke about loss, not in detail, but enough for her to see the weight he carried. Years ago, tragedy had taken away the people he loved, leaving him unable to remain in a world filled with memories. "That is why I came here," he said. "The mountains do not ask questions." She listened carefully, her eyes filled with quiet compassion. "Maybe they brought you here for a reason," she said. He did not answer, but her words stayed with him. The next day, they traveled together a short distance down the trail to check conditions. Walking side by side felt natural now. They spoke more freely, sharing small stories and thoughts that once felt too personal. At one point, she stopped and looked back toward the cabin high above. "It feels strange," she said. "When I arrived, I thought I would leave as soon as I could. Now I feel like I am leaving something important behind." He felt the same but did not say it. They returned before sunset, carrying supplies they had stored earlier. As night fell, they sat near the fire again, the same place where they had first shared silence. "I will need to decide soon," she said. He nodded. Yes. Neither wanted to rush the moment, yet both knew time was moving forward. Later that night, as she prepared to sleep, she paused. "You helped me without asking anything," she said. "Why?" He considered the question carefully. "Because you needed help," he answered simply. She smiled softly, but her eyes showed deeper emotion. "You gave me more than shelter," she said. "You gave me space to breathe again." He did not know how to respond to that, so he added another piece of wood to the fire instead. Outside, the stars filled the sky, bright and endless. The mountains felt different now, no longer a place of isolation, but a place where two lives had crossed in unexpected ways. As he watched the flames, he realized something had changed inside him. Helping her had reminded him that connection did not always lead to pain. Sometimes it led to healing. And as she lay awake listening to the quiet sounds of the cabin, she wondered whether her journey had not been about escaping at all, but about finding a place where she could finally choose where to belong. The trail would soon be open. Decisions would have to be made, but for now the night remained calm, holding them in a fragile moment between past and future. Spring arrived slowly in the mountains. Snow still covered parts of the ground, but patches of green began to appear where sunlight stayed longer during the day. The frozen stream now flowed freely, carrying melted snow down the valley. Birds returned, their soft calls breaking the long silence that winter had left behind. Inside the cabin, life followed a quiet rhythm. They woke early, shared simple meals, and worked together without needing many words. What once felt temporary had slowly become routine. The woman moved through the space with confidence now, no longer hesitant or unsure. The mountain man noticed how naturally she fit into the life he had built alone. Yet both felt something shifting beneath the calm surface. The trail down the mountain was fully visible now. Travel was possible. The moment they had avoided talking about was finally here. That morning, she stood outside near the edge of the clearing, watching the valley below. He approached slowly, unsure whether to speak. "It is time," she said softly, without turning. He felt the weight of her words. "Yes," he replied, but neither moved. Instead, they spent the day working as usual. They repaired tools, checked the garden area where new plants would soon grow, and prepared firewood for future storms. Every action felt meaningful, as if they were quietly delaying a decision neither wanted to make too quickly. In the afternoon, they walked together along the trail. The air felt warmer than before, carrying the smell of fresh earth. She walked slightly ahead, her steps steady and confident. "I used to think moving forward meant never looking back," she said suddenly. "Now I am not so sure." He waited, giving her space to continue. "When I first came here, I believed I was only passing through, she said. But staying has changed me.
He nodded slowly.
You changed this place too, he admitted. She looked at him, surprised. Ow. There is more laughter here, he said quietly. More life. They reached a point where the trail split. One path leading down toward the distant town, the other back toward the cabin. She stopped there, staring at the open road. This is where I should go, she said, though her voice lacked certainty. He watched her carefully, feeling both pride in her strength and sadness at the thought of her leaving. You will be safe, he said. She turned toward him, searching his face as if hoping for more words. He hesitated. Years of solitude had made expressing emotion difficult. He wanted to ask her to stay, but fear held him back. Fear that holding on to someone again might lead to loss. She sensed his struggle. You do not have to say anything, she said gently. You already gave me what I needed. Finally, she turned back toward the cabin instead of the open trail. Not today, she said quietly. Relief washed over him, though he tried not to show it too strongly. They returned home together. Days passed again, filled with shared tasks and growing understanding. One evening, they decided to visit a nearby mountain ridge to watch the sunset. The climb was slow but peaceful, giving them time to reflect. From the top, the view stretched endlessly. The sky turned shades of gold and orange, painting the mountains with warm light. It is beautiful, she whispered. He nodded. I stopped coming here alone, he admitted. It reminded me too much of things I lost. She sat beside him, listening carefully. What changed? She asked. You arrived, he said simply. The honesty surprised even him. She looked down at her hands, touched by his words but unsure how to respond. The silence between them felt deeper than before, filled with unspoken emotion. After a while, she spoke. I used to believe I was broken beyond repair, she said. Everywhere I went, I felt like I did not belong. And now? He asked. She looked at the mountains, then at him. Now I feel like maybe being broken only means you are still alive enough to heal.
He smiled faintly at her wisdom.
As darkness approached, they walked back slowly. The path felt familiar now, like something shared between them. That night, they cooked a larger meal together, laughing when small mistakes happened. The cabin felt alive in a way it had not for years. Even the quiet moments felt full instead of empty. Later, sitting near the fire, she grew thoughtful. The men who came before, they may return, she said. If they do, I will need to choose clearly. I will not stop you, he said. She met his eyes. I know. There was no pressure, no expectation. Only understanding. The following morning they prepared for a supply trip down the mountain together. Walking side by side felt natural, like a partnership built through shared experience, rather than words. During the journey they faced small challenges, crossing icy patches, navigating fallen trees, and adjusting to the warmer weather. Each obstacle strengthened their trust in one another. At one point she slipped slightly on loose stones, and he reached out instinctively. She laughed softly. I used to think I had to do everything alone, she said. Now I am learning it is okay to lean on someone. He felt warmth in her words. When they returned to the cabin that evening, tired but satisfied, she paused at the doorway. This place feels different now, she said. He nodded. It is no longer only mine, he admitted quietly. Her eyes softened, understanding the meaning behind his words. They entered together, closing the door behind them as the evening light faded. Outside, the mountain stood silent and steady, watching two people slowly learning that staying did not mean losing freedom. Sometimes it meant finding it. The mountains changed quietly as spring moved forward. Snow melted into clear streams, and green plants slowly covered the ground where winter had once ruled. Warm sunlight reached the cabin more often now, bringing longer days and softer evenings. The world felt alive again, and with that change came the feeling that something important was about to happen. Inside the cabin their routine continued, but both knew that nothing stayed the same forever. The question of whether she would leave or stay rested quietly between them, like a thought neither wanted to rush. One morning she woke earlier than usual. The first light of day filled the room with soft color. She stepped outside alone, breathing in the cool air. The mountains stretched endlessly around her, calm and strong. She remembered how lost she had felt when she first arrived, tired, unsure, and searching for a place where she could finally rest without fear. Now she felt different. She heard the cabin door open behind her. The mountain man stepped outside holding 2 cups of warm tea. Without speaking, he handed one to her. They stood side by side, watching the valley below. "The trail is clear now," he said gently. She nodded. Yes. The moment felt heavy, not with sadness, but with importance. Later that day they walked down the trail together toward a small market area where travelers sometimes gathered during warmer seasons. The journey felt symbolic, a return to the world beyond the mountains. As they walked, she noticed how calm she felt, no longer running away but moving forward with purpose. When they reached the small gathering place, a few people greeted them politely. Some recognized the mountain man, surprised to see him with company. She noticed the way he stayed close without being protective in a controlling way, simply present. They gathered supplies and shared a quiet meal before beginning the walk back. On the way home, she slowed her steps.
"I thought coming back here would feel like leaving something behind," she said.
"But it feels like returning." He smiled slightly. "That is how I felt the first time I came here," he admitted. They reached the cabin by sunset. The sky turned warm shades of orange and gold, lighting the mountains with gentle beauty. She paused near the door, taking in the view. "I need to tell you something," she said. He waited patiently. "When I first arrived, I believed I only deserved one safe night," she continued. "I thought I was too broken to stay anywhere longer. But this place, and you, showed me that healing happens slowly."
He listened quietly, feeling the depth of her words.
"I was afraid to stop moving," she said, "because stopping meant facing myself. But here, I learned who I am without fear or expectations." The fire crackled softly inside as they entered the cabin. That evening felt different from all the others. There was no uncertainty left, only honesty waiting to be spoken. They sat near the fire, the same place where she had first rested when she arrived exhausted and unsure. Now her posture showed strength and peace. "I could leave tomorrow," she said gently. "The trail is open. The world is waiting." He nodded, though the thought created a quiet ache inside him. "But I do not want to leave," she added. He looked at her, surprised by the certainty in her voice. "I want to stay," she said. "Not because I am afraid of the world, but because I choose this life. I choose this place. And I choose to stay with you, if you want that too." For a moment, he said nothing. Years of solitude had taught him to guard his heart carefully. The idea of sharing his life again felt both beautiful and frightening. Finally, he spoke. "When you asked for one night, I thought you would leave as soon as you could," he admitted. "I did not expect to feel this way again." She smiled softly. "Neither did I." He took a deep breath. "You can stay," he said quietly. "Not just for now, but for as long as you want." Relief and warmth filled her expression. The decision felt natural, not dramatic, like something that had been growing slowly since the first moment she stepped through the door. Days turned into weeks, and their life together deepened. They planted a small garden, repaired parts of the cabin, and explored new paths through the mountains. Every task felt shared, turning work into connection. She began adding small touches to the cabin: woven blankets, simple decorations, and herbs hanging near the window. The space changed gradually, reflecting both of them instead of only one person. He noticed how laughter came more easily now. Silence no longer felt like loneliness, but like peaceful companionship. One evening, while sitting outside watching the stars, she spoke again. "Do you ever fear losing this?" she asked. He thought carefully before answering. "Yes." he said honestly, but I learned that fear cannot decide how we live. She nodded, understanding deeply. We cannot control everything, she said, but we can choose to stay present. The mountains around them stood quiet, holding their words like secrets. As summer approached, travelers passed occasionally, and the cabin became a place where stories were shared. People who visited noticed the calm energy between them, a partnership built on respect, patience, and understanding rather than sudden emotion. One day, while watching the sunrise together, he turned to her.
"You asked for one night," he said softly.
She smiled. "And you told me to stay forever."
He nodded.
"And I meant it." She reached for his hand, holding it gently. Their story did not end with dramatic change or grand promises. Instead, it continued with simple moments, shared meals, quiet conversations, and the steady rhythm of mountain life. The cabin that once symbolized isolation now represented belonging. Two people who once believed they were broken had found strength together, proving that sometimes healing begins with a single act of kindness and grows into something lasting.